Hello, my name is Sjoerd Koppert, or people in the industry mainly call me Sjoko, which is a lot easier than Sjoerd. I'm from Holland, from Friesland, right up in the north of Holland, so I'm an old Viking type person. I came to Santa Barbara in 1996, and originally I managed a couple of studios in Los Angeles. And then I really was kind of fed up with the whole Los Angeles scene, and I decided to build a studio in Montecito, which we did. It was located on East Valley Road, probably the only commercial building on East Valley Road. But people didn't hear it because it was a studio, so nobody had any objections to it. And then I found it was not big enough to do with what I wanted to do, because I saw the music business was changing to such an extent that just having a recording studio was not sufficient. So I wanted to do something different, and nobody in the music business seemed to do anything different. And so I found we had to establish a new model of doing things, which is being able to talk to the client base on a one-to-one basis, to market things on a one-to-one basis. That means if you're an artist, you need to get your things out there on a regular basis. You need to establish contact with your customer, with your fan base. And the only way you can do that is releasing material fast, to a high quality, quickly, keep in constant touch with your fan base. And so if you have a recording studio, you can record things there. You can't shoot film or anything like that. So what I had to do was totally redesign the concept, so you're able to come in and record. You're able to film what you're doing. We can release the recording process to the fans. We can release demos to the fans, engage the fans, and in the end they're so interested in what you're doing, they will buy the end product because they feel involved with it. So that's why we came over here and we built this place, which was basically, you can look at it as a microcosm of one of the large studio lots of old. It's a place where you can do everything on a small footprint that works in an economic fashion, but also works to an extremely high quality. So that's what we're doing here.
You mentioned the industry's changing. How would you say it's changing, and how do you see it in the future?
Well, how it's changing, I'll tell you. My friend Peter Noon has got the best description of the change in the music industry. Is that everybody knows that round Capitol Industry building, or Capitol Records building in LA. So that used to be the studios on the ground floors, then layers and layers of floors with music business people, and the top floor was for the execs, the lawyers and the accountants. Then the execs, lawyers and accountants moved down to the studio level, and there was no music business people left, and that was the end of the music industry. And so it's changed to such an extent that my royalty checks used to be $6,000–7,000 a month, and then they went down to 27 cents a month. So something needed to change. And the only way to do that was the way I just described, is work more cost effectively. Go back to the beginning of the music business, which I was fortunate to be involved with in the 60s, where record companies actually cared about their artists and worked together with their artists to build something that is long-lasting, and to be actively involved in developing their careers. At the moment, what we're seeing is there's an artist who they think looks good or can sing a little bit. If she can't sing or he can't sing, they auto-tune it. It's not all artists, but there's a lot of them. Then they get somebody who's in fashion at the time to write a verse, somebody else writes a chorus, somebody writes a hook. They put it all together with the producer and the engineer, who are all the fashion, and then they come up with something. Of course, that way you build careers that do not last. We prefer to work with our artists. We put the right people together. We work with artists that are committed to their jobs and do see it as a job and are prepared to work hard at it. That's what's changed. We're going back to where it was in the beginning, where you have a company that cares about artists, that works with artists, instead of a bunch of lawyers and executives trying to screw artists over as quick as they can and then just move on to the next one.
And is it cost effective for people to come here from LA?
Very much so, because there is no place like this where they can come in and record the music, say let's go take a really good studio in LA and say cellist recording. Say they go to cellist recording. If they want, they can record there. But if they want to film, they got to bring a film crew in. That's separate. Then they've got to find somewhere to go where they can edit the film. They can stay at cellist to finish the music. Then where the film is edited and the music part have got to come together again in post-production. So you talk about bringing people in from the outside that are not on staff, so they have to be hired from a different company. You talk about traveling time, you talk about enormous waste. So on average, I looked with a friend of mine who shoots high-end commercials, and he said, if I come to your place, and we have the location company here as well, apart from the production company and the music company and the film and video department and post-production, editing and coloring, we got everything here. So everything can be done in-house. So my friend who shoots a lot of commercials said, on average, if I would come to your place, I can either shoot on your sound stage, or Shannon can get me a location to shoot at. I can bring my project in here and I can walk out of the door with a finished project. That overall is going to save me about 40 to 50% of my budget. So that's a huge difference. You see, just like most of the sound stages are in Burbank, most of the post places are on the coast. Just from either of those places, it takes longer to travel from Burbank to Venice or somewhere like that than from either place to get over here. So it's a nice place. You're out of the hustle and bustle of LA. It's quicker to get here. And it's just more relaxed place to work. You get more things done quicker.
How are musical artists marketing their work these days?
And that is something that is in complete flux. And that is something we're talking about all the time. What we have started to do, even though we're not fully operational at the moment, is we are releasing one single and one video every single week. And I know even most large record companies are not capable of doing that. We're not ready yet, we're doing it. And that's the way they're going to be successful, is establishing what I said before, that one-to-one connection with their fan base, to get their fan base actively involved in what they're doing.
Can you tell me what music you were into as a youth?
Yes, I could. If you've got an hour or so. I like, I'm a brass player. My mother played piano, my father played violin. My mother at a very high level, although she, unfortunately, she was turned in concentration camps. She went to Ravensbrück and Dachau, and she didn't play anymore after that. I think because they forced her to play. And that too, but she always loved music, so they never moaned when I was making a lot of noise practicing, because practicing trumpet and trombone and clarinet and saxophone can be very unpleasant, especially if you got somebody who's passionate about it and does scales all day. But they were very supportive, so I've been into music all my life. My father was a huge opera fan. He took me to see, I think I'm giving my age away, 1968, he took me to Milan to see Maria Callas in La Scala. And he took me to see Edith Piaf at La Locomotive in Paris. And we always had a lot of musicians over the floor. And they were always very supportive of what I wanted to do in music. Not so supportive when I left college and decided to concentrate on music instead, but pretty happy when they saw I could make a good living with it. And so I was involved in music from a very early age, and I had very good, supportive parents. But the type of music I like, therefore, ranges literally from opera to music, to rap and hip-hop and everything in between. What I'm most passionate about is, of course, you're always most passionate about things that you've been involved with. I worked with The Who, Pink Floyd, Jay Giles, Doobie Brothers, lots of bands. I had a sound company in Europe, so I was fortunate to. I've also worked with everybody who's dead, from Jimi Hendrix to I toured with The Doors and Jefferson Airplane at the time, and Jimi Hendrix and all those people from a very early age. So I'm just passionate about music. I don't care what it is. Good music is good music, and we've got artists on our label from well-known R&B people like TQ, for instance. He's amazing. To rappers like Bishop Lamont, to R&B people. I already said it. To classical people, to rock, to whatever. You know, good is good. Good music is good music.
I understand you also were in the corporate world. What did you do there, and how did that help towards this world?
I think the thing that helped me most was when I started my own band when I was 15 years old. I wanted a PA system, and I went to my dad and asked him for some money because I had some ideas on how to build a better PA system. And in those days, all you could get for a PA was a little box with 5 12-inch speakers in them. And I think we could make something better. So I went to my dad and asked him for some money. And he dropped me off at the library. And his parting words when he opened the door to let me out, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing there, was go in there and find out what it's like to write a business plan, and closed the door and drove away. So there was no typewriters or anything. I did 6 handwritten business proposals before he said, okay, I'll put some money into that. So that helped a lot. And then I decided I needed to learn. I was a bit burned out on touring all the time, and I wanted to learn more about business. And because of that, I was offered a job through a writer who was a very well-known writer of pop songs in England at the time. His brother happened to be the chief executive of a large corporation. I ended up working for them, and they had a lot of distribution, physical distribution interests like transport companies, etc. They wanted to divest from that. And my job was to do that, and I did that successfully, and I'm very proud of, without anybody losing their job, even though it was in a difficult time. And the last 2 companies were sold to Federal Express, who had no presence outside the United States at the time. And so it was my responsibility I sold myself out of a job. I sold their last 2 companies, so that was me gone. So then I was offered a job by Federal Express, and I launched Federal Express in Europe and the Middle East in 1986, which was a little bit like putting a big band on tour. Yeah, it was good fun while it lasted. Then it became boring and paperwork, so I was out of there and went back into music.
What's your passion now about what you do in your daily life? What do you particularly enjoy doing?
I'm looking forward to, my wiring has just arrived. I'm looking forward to start using this. And so we have it. This is something that is, this is the first one in a recording studio. And as a lot of people know, really the amount of money available in professional audio has been very minimal. And at the same time, what's happened in broadcast has been phenomenal development. If you think about 10, 15 years ago, we were looking at tube-filled, heavy, huge boxes, and now we got televisions that are like a couple of inches thick, and just everything's changed to such an extent. It's been amazing. Audio has changed with it, but not in the audio industry, in the broadcast industry. So I've been very lucky for about 14 years now. I've been working with a company called Salzbrenner Stage Tech, and they got big because they were a consortium of engineers, very high-end engineers in Germany, who formed a group because they thought they could do things better. And in their typical extremely anal German way, they did things better, and they developed equipment which was outrageously good. And they've continued developing that, and I continue to have a relationship with them. And I established the relationship because I wanted to buy their preamps and their converters, which is the thing that makes digital audio sound good. And I couldn't afford their control services, which were astronomically priced. They still are, but I found a way to overcome that by running the interface from a laptop. And so I became known to everybody within Stage Tech. I was, who's that idiot in Montecito with a studio who doesn't buy our control service but uses our equipment? And they all came to visit me, and they loved coming to Santa Barbara anyway. And so I established a relationship with them, and then one of the executives, just before he retired, phoned me. He knew I was building a new studio. And he said, what would you like ideally in your new studio? And can you just send me an email with just ideally what you would like in there? So I did that. And then their United States representative, the one who runs Stage Tech USA, he used to work with Deep Purple and things like that. So we've known each other since the 60s. He's from Scotland and a total maniac and the most lovable person on the planet. And he suddenly phoned me. He said, what the hell is all this? I've got all these boxes delivered with your name on it. Did you order that? I said, no, I didn't. So they just sent it over. So basically, it doesn't mean I didn't have to pay anything for it. We paid for a lot of it, but let's put it like this. If we had to pay the full price for their equipment, we wouldn't have been able to afford it. They gave us a lot of support. And like, if you look at this console, it's the most advanced console in the world today. It's not just what you see, but there's layers and layers and layers and layers of different possibilities. It's infinitely assignable. And I can run literally up to 1,000 channels on this without any problem. And it's the audio quality is something that has not been heard yet in a professional recording studio. If you look at the best of analog, you look at, say, for instance, the top range Neve console with a Studer Gold 24 track machine. You talk about 96 dB dynamic range. We are working at 158 dB dynamic range, and we don't have summing problems, which is the problem with everybody's having who records on a digital audio workstation today. So the sound quality it just makes people smile when they hear what it sounds like. It even makes me smile. It's stunning.
Lastly, what else would you like to say either about yourself or Rose Lane Studios?
Well, I think with Rose Lane Studios, one of the main things here is that the people that are around are people that have proven themselves. Otherwise, in modern language, like Damien would say, who runs my record labels, they can't hang. And they're passionate about what they do. They're passionate about bringing up young people in the business, and they're passionate about allowing people to prove themselves. And we've got a lot of time of people who are capable or mentally capable of putting the work in to get somewhere. And we're passionate about helping that new range of people come up. And what I think we're establishing as a business in the entertainment industry is a model that should be a blueprint of the way things should be done. That's a really creative environment where artists don't get screwed over. And that's it.
Well, thanks so much.
You're welcome.